everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome for those of you who are new to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing a somewhat of a Q&A, kind of talking about my college experience. For the most part, because today is my virtual graduation, I thought why not kind of wrap up my college experience just because everything is fresh out of my mind. So if you would like to participate in future videos, make sure to follow me on Instagram because that's where I'm asking people questions. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for whenever I post. So without further ado, let's move on to today's video. So the first question is, what school did you attend? And so I attended Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles, California. It's close to the Getty Center. So I definitely enjoyed the view just because it was high up in the mountains and I was able to see all of LA and then the beach and things like that. So I really loved the location of my school. The second question is, what year did you graduate? I graduated in spring of 2020. What was your major? So my major was psychology, specifically applied psychology, and then my minor was Spanish studies. Fourth question is, did you ever consider transferring or switching majors? So I think this is a good question just because a lot of things kind of went on my mind when I was in college. I never thought of transferring because I knew I wanted to attend MSMU, so I never considered attending a different school. But in terms of switching majors, I definitely did switch my majors multiple times. Well, not multiple times, but I switched it in order to kind of fit my needs. Initially, when I started as a freshman, my major was child development and then my minor was psychology, but I realized that I wanted to kind of flop those. And then from there on, I decided to not declare my minor as child development. Instead, I wanted to double major, specifically psychology and in Spanish, because I still wanted to kind of improve on my ability to speak Spanish just because I am bilingual. However, when I was in my junior year in college, I realized that Spanish was definitely not my forte. I am good speaking it just because I am a native speaker. So I decided to make it a minor, and that's when I ended up majoring in psych and minoring in Spanish. Alright, so the next question is, what were some of your favorite classes? So for me, I think my favorite classes were those that challenged me academically, but at the same time that were fun, I would say. The one that comes to mind is the philosophy class that I took my senior year. The professor was very into Star Wars, and so because of that, I ended up growing a love for Star Wars, and I ended up learning a lot. And the class was definitely very difficult for me, but I was able to manage, and so that class was an example of something that challenged me academically, but at the same time fun. So the next question is, how was your transition from high school to college? Okay, so I really like this question just because I feel like I'm a little bit biased. When I was in high school, actually, I went to a very small high school, and because of that, the transition to my college, it was pretty easy because my college was also very small, and so I didn't really find that much of a difficulty transitioning. However, overall, it was definitely a new experience. I really loved my high school experience, and so going from high school to college was something like a drastic change for me in terms of like being in a very like loving environment to becoming very independent on your own. And so those were some of the main things that I found to be difficult overall. But in terms of being challenged academically, I found it to be an easy transition just because I feel like my high school prepared me for college. The next question is, what year did you find academically challenging? For me, I think the years that I found the most difficult were my second semester of freshman year and my second semester of junior year and all of senior year. So for freshman year, it was difficult for me just because I was going through a difficult time. My second semester of junior year was difficult just because I was taking majority of the main courses for psychology, and like I did it because I knew that my senior year was going to be difficult. And then transitioning to senior year, that year was definitely the year where I feel like I reached burnt out. Like, I kid you not, I was writing a thesis, I was applying to grad school, and on top of that, I was trying to do my best to maintain my grades, and at the same time, I was working. So for me, it just was very, very emotionally draining, and so that year I feel like was one of the hardest for me. So the next question is, what was your favorite and least favorite part of the school? So for me, my My favorite part of campus, I think, was having that like connection that I was able to build with professors. And then my least favorite thing about my school, I think, are the stairs. The stairs are literally the worst, and I think that's the number one thing that people complain about. Since my school is literally on a mountain, we have to climb up the stairs to get to classes, and even climb up the stairs to get to the building where the classes are located. And so I think that's like one of the things that I did not like. Also because I never paid for a parking permit. So I would park all the way at the bottom and I literally had to walk the entire way up. And so sometimes I was late to class, other times I was literally running out of breath. But for the most part, that was one of the things that I didn't like. The next question is, what do I think of campus and extracurricular activities? So for me at least, I felt like the extracurricular activities were made for students who live on campus and not for students who were commuters. So I was a commuter. I would drive from my house to campus, and a lot of the activities or clubs and things like that were in the afternoon, and I didn't necessarily like want to stay, especially in Los Angeles, where, if you know LA, like traffic is really crazy after a certain time. Like if you're not gone by that time, then you're going to be stuck in traffic. And so for me at least, I knew I had to leave by 4 o'clock, because if I waited even longer, it was going to take a longer time to get home. And so I just felt like there was a lot of activities that they didn't necessarily make for students who were commuters, and if they did, they were mostly during classes that like students would take. And so I just found that I wasn't able to connect with the campus in that way. The next question is, what was your favorite place to study? For me, I love to study anywhere that had to do with natural light. Most of the time I would study by the library. My library had these big windows, and natural light would just kind of come in, and so I always enjoyed to do my work there. I was more productive that way, and so that's where I prefer to work. Alright, so the next question is, when people found out where you went to college, does it hold any weight? Alright, so I think this question is difficult to answer just because I am a first generation student. At least for me, it didn't matter what school I went to as long as I was in school. A lot of my family members and relatives were very proud of me, and so every time someone would hear that I was in college, I would end up getting praised about it. That was something that I felt very proud of and very humbled for people to praise me in that way. The next question is, did you take on any debt? And if so, how long do you plan to pay for it? Majority of the students in 2020 have to take out loans, especially for me because I went to a private school. I had to take out loans, and so I was still paying out of pocket, but I needed to take out loans. My goal is to pay them off as soon as possible because interest really matters. And so I guess a tip that I could provide is, if you do take out loans, try your best to pay them off when you're in school, because interest does end up accumulating, especially if you do the unsubsidized loan. I could be wrong, but I would just recommend to do your research on loans and see if you could avoid them. I couldn't avoid them, but for the most part, yes, I did take out loans. Alright, so the next question is, if you could go back in time, would you attend the school again, and why? I think yes, I would definitely do it again, just because I loved my college experience. I think, for me at least, my personality fit well going to a very small school, and so I would do it again. In terms of that school in particular, I'm not exactly sure. I would try to see if I could go to another school just because of the majors. If there were more majors at my school, then it wouldn't really matter. But at least in other like schools that are private schools that have more majors, it allows for students to kind of branch out and figure out what they want to do. And so I would definitely have to think about that one, just because, like I said, I really loved my school. I loved everything about it. So the last question is, what advice do you give to current college students? I could honestly make a whole video about this, and if you do, make sure to comment that down below. But in terms of like advice I would give to college students, I think I would do... So I have two pieces of advice. The first is, do not take college for granted. It's only like a one-time thing, unless if you're going to go back to school, obviously, in the future. But at least for me, I never took my college experience for granted. I loved everything about it, especially it being a private school. And my other piece of advice would be, if you're a student and you don't like your major, feel free to change it. You shouldn't feel obligated to stay to that major. I think that's something that I would recommend students. You should do your research in terms of your major and see what kind of jobs are offered. I know if you go to grad school and you're going to continue education, that's something completely different. But if you're going to take like a year off, or if you're going to go straight into the workforce, it's important to have like a major that allows for you to find a job. Alright, so that is it for today's video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. Make sure to comment down below a question that you may have, or if there's something that you would like for me to expand upon. I definitely could make a college advice video. Feel free to request that in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like this video. So I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Bye!